Daughter in the city, rushing to me. Down home, upstream, are you with me? Round up, rainbow, daughter in the city, rushing to me. Down home, upstream, are you with me? Feel it.
Good afternoon, everyone. BC Richfield here, coming to you live from London. It's just gone a couple of minutes past midday here. Actually, just gone 5 minutes past midday here, which makes it the same past 1100 UTC. Apologies for running a little bit late, ladies and gentlemen. Just had a couple of technical issues, all of which hopefully are now fixed. If you are having any issues with the audio or the video, please do let me know in the chats. So a very big shout out to everybody watching the stream live today. We've been getting thousands and thousands of you every week. It's just been a really, really turbulent time in the market for a lot of people. I know a lot of people hurting, a lot of people who used absolutely, perfect approaches to risk management and that were really, really killed by this cascading liquidity effect. So I want to just, this is obviously our chart request show. We did a similar kind of format on Monday just to kind of look at the state of the crypto market in general, but also to just kind of share a little bit more of my kind of macro view of the markets and what we're looking at the moment. Craigie boy, hello, mate. Wisdom, hello, my friend. Again, apologies. I think it's Linus, isn't it? But apologies if I don't get your names right. For some reason, the software at the moment is sending through everybody's at names, so we can't really see that. Karamamba, hello, mate. Big volume coming by Fartcoin. I do love what an industry we work in. And Mehmet, there's a lot of Fartcoin shillers today. So yeah, going to be an interesting one. Guys, if you do want me to look at any particular ticker, do let me know in the comments, and I'll make time to take a little look as long as we have it. So just looking at this now, where are we? Obviously, after a major shock to the system like we've had here, if we actually opened our market analyst meeting to members on Monday. Normally that's a closed meeting just for the analyst team, right? It's when we kind of put our heads together after Monday's range is kind of starting to form out. We watch how the equity markets open, look at the key macroeconomic, fundamental and technical drivers affecting the market, and basically share information with one another so we're as best prepared as we can be. Now, looking at that, there were some really, really interesting points in terms of how this all came about, how the cascade, the liquidity cascade hit the exchanges, why they were kind of quite ill prepared for it really, and why, unfortunately, a lot of the time, your stop losses, bits and pieces like that didn't really come in to save. Craigie boy, yeah, of course, mate. I've already got Solana on the list for you as well. Definitely take a look at one of my old favorites, AVAX. I used to almost exclusively trade that years ago. It's just such an excellently clean chart for intraday traders. So where are we at the moment? I think understanding where we are with Bitcoin, understanding where we are with Bitcoin dominance, taking a slightly broader look at the markets. Let's remember we're still in the government shutdown in the US, which is adding a little bit of extra complexity, shall we say, to the picture at the moment. Historically, these things haven't had as far-ranging impacts as some would make you believe. The risk that we have here is where there's no real kind of solution on the horizon at the moment, unless I've missed some form of major news, which it certainly doesn't look like it, judging by how the markets are reacting, for there being a solution. Like, if it gets over a certain period, I think between 14 and 17 days, and again, others that might be better versed in that would correct me, but I think that's the maximum there's ever been a shutdown length for. That's when we start to get into uncharted territory, and that's when things could start to get a little bit interesting. All right, let's not forget we've got the tariff uncertainty that's starting to wash through, this kind of back and forth that's going on between Trump and the US and Z and China. the whole thing on Friday, the tactical nature of how it was released right towards the end of the equity market, so that basically so many people got trapped in that move. It hurt so many people. Obviously, crypto washed out over that period, heading into the weekend as well. Live 88, big wave back to you as well, my friend. And so the markets are kind of reeling from that a little bit. So we are going to look at what's going on with the NASDAQ, what's going on with the S&P 500 at the moment, what's our kind of risk appetite looking like in traditional markets. Ultimately, what's going on at the moment is another kind of bump in the road along this kind of risk curve that we've been running, all right, since Trump came into the White House. First pro-crypto president. Turns out he's not against, a little touch of market manipulation there for his own benefit. And obviously he's a very, very powerful person with a great reach to a lot of people. So unpicking a lot of this stuff does take a little while, but the markets are incredibly efficient at doing this. And we see this first and foremost within the S&P 500, the NASDAQ, the major indexes. The big worry for those at the moment is the AI narrative, right? That's that NVIDIA has really been kind of propping this up. In fact, I think the Magnificent Seven have been responsible for around about 70% of the returns of that index in recent times, which, on the face of things does sound a little bit bubbly, right? But what I want people to remember, the difference between, a catastrophic bubble like we saw with the dot-com bubble is a lot of that was financed on debt. Okay, so when the floor went on that, there was just absolutely nowhere to hide, right? Over leverage, major debt, huge explosion. If we look at what's going into the AI boom at the moment, this is capital expenditure. It's very, very different. And I believe listening to Alfonso Picadillo, who's, in my opinion, one of the best macro analysts out there, a guy called Macro Alf, you might remember him from one of our Congress events a few years ago, was saying that I think it's around about 20% of the debt on this at the moment, which is a million miles away from what it was in the dot-com bubble. The issue here a little bit is the battle that's going on with China, because when we look at it, beyond the face value of this, there's a lot more depth to this story. If we look at the unsettling, not the unsettling is the wrong word, but the kind of the news coming out of China in terms of DeepSeek that was designed to unsettle NVIDIA, designed to really spice up this AI story. Now, kind of looking at the development of that over time, there's now been China trying to attack NVIDIA, saying, that they're the monopolization they have within the industry isn't, correct and should be looked at, etc. There's just these little kind of this little battle that's going on, the tariffs or the tariff increase on China for their recent moves to secure, the rare earth materials, bits and pieces like that, being very aggressive in that front, is now this element that's in focus, and this is being used as this next tranche of attacks by Trump onto China. It's kind of unsettling the market a little bit. So basically what we can do is just take a look at where we are. Ultimately, news events like that really come out of nowhere. There are very few people know about those. Very select insider people will probably know about those as well and benefit from them, but the rest of the market has to deal with the fallout and then ultimately suffer the repercussions of that. So looking at Bitcoin at the moment, just very quickly before we do move on and take a quick look at traditional markets, obviously in terms of the news that we're facing this week, we don't have the data coming in, right? So, this week we should have seen some key news events. Like today, for example, we'd be looking, we've got the Empire States Manufacturing Index, fine, but then that's medium level news at best. Tomorrow is a really, really interesting one, all right? Tomorrow, Thursday the 16th, we were due to get PPI figures. So we've got core PPI coming in. You've got core retail sales figures, PPI, retail sales, unemployment claims, all right? Now, what we do have, and we're not going to get the data for those, right? So, make of that what you will. Different kind of fund managers and bits and pieces that we've spoken to see it in different ways. Some see it as a little bit of an alleviation of the data, and that basically when these things happen, the market typically marches on in kind. So, until we get to that point where people just don't have any data to go on, and that's when the length of the shutdown starts to become a little bit of an issue. All right. Certainly, mate. We will take a look at Aster. In fact, we're going to cover Bitcoin, ETH, Solana, Aster. I've got a project that I really wanted to kind of look at with you guys, which is called U2U, company that actually I think I introduced on this show Christ, a long time ago now, just had a really, really good resurgence. We were making people aware of this a little while back in terms of new partnerships that they had, the growth program, really, really liking what we're seeing there. And that one's really just started to pop. So a lot of members, other people that were early stage with us in that have really started to come on board. And naturally now it's had a large move up. We're getting a lot of questions about it. So I'm going to cover that as well on the show. I just had a request for AVAX as well from Craigie Boy, which we'll take a look at too. If you do have anything else, please let us know, ladies and gents. I'll try and cover it before the end of the show. And in a couple of minutes, I'll start waffling on about this. But it is really, really important news, right? So hopefully you guys don't find that too boring. But anyway, on Thursday, we're concluding the week with FOMC member Waller speaking. And importantly about that is we've actually now, there's a lot of news about Waller becoming a front runner for Powell's position when the Federal Reserve change in May next year. All right, so that's going to be really interesting when when Chairman Powell steps down. Waller's a really real favourite to kind of take over that position at the moment. And again, as we're seeing at the moment, something that I've really been looking at and something that really makes a lot of sense for me is having this probably quite choppy, turbulent Q4. Now, historically and seasonality-wise, Q4's been very, very positive. Seasonality hasn't really worked particularly well this year. There's a lot of different catalysts driving the market. So what we're looking at here is if we did get that kind of cooling off period and then we did all of a sudden start to see some of these areas settle, I imagine China-US trade deal gets agreed. That's going to take a little while to hash out. GDP and the US economy continues to remain robust. We don't see inflation, rise its head too much. The Fed sticks to its policy that it's looking for in terms of rate cuts. And then we have more rate cuts heading into 2026, along with a new FOMC chair who could be slightly more, dovish than Powell, might be more aligned with Trump's agenda to get those interest rates down. We see the tariff revenue start to wash through in the US as well. All of those, obviously the finalization around the tariffs start to settle, and not just, of course, for economic reasons, but for humanitarian reasons. We see de-escalations or the continuation of de-escalations in places like Gaza. And hopefully, I'm sure everybody's kind of hoping and praying for this. We see, a stop to the Ukraine and Russia conflict. All right. There's a lot of major catalysts basically that can affect this market in a positive way. At the moment, the negative catalysts are kind of stacking up, but realistically, the market's not actually doing that bad when you consider the weight of factors that are trying to drag it down from a risk perspective. All right. So with that in mind, what does that all mean? The week's going to be very, very tricky from a news perspective. Typically, the market will continue in kind when it doesn't have new data to go from. Don't get me wrong, funds and people will be looking at other data sources to make, heads or tails of what's going on at the moment. But the key data that's being waited for isn't being released because of the government shutdown. Okay, so what else do we have to cover? Well, I'm going to take a look with you all at traditional markets. I'm just going to take a look at the comments and a few other bits and pieces. I just want to see if we've got any more requests coming in for tickers because I really don't want to miss that out here. We've got BTC, ETH, Solana, Asta, U2U, AVAX. That's the other one. I want to just cover Estate X for you guys as well. One of my favorite projects, one of my favorite companies, obviously taking a major hit in this at the moment. So I wanted to cover that off as well. I haven't sold anything. I've been completely open and honest about that. Told you when I was selling Asta, told you when I was selling Stable, told you when I was securing everything from Bitcoin to ETH. Estate X for me is a major long-term project. So I just want to kind of run through because a few people asked me if I've bought some more, and I have, and where I plan to buy some more. So that one's on me. I want to give you guys a little bit of coverage on that as well. So I think we're looking good there, right? If you do have anything else, do let me know. And Craigie Boy, I see a little comment at the end for you here as well. So there's someone in the AI industry and selling those solutions daily. It's only about to take off for while to go. There's loads more growth yet. Really interesting information coming in from Craigie Boy as well. Long-time member of the channel and often has some very, very good insights on stuff like that. That's really interesting. And I agree. So just to cover this off quickly before we dive into it, to give you my thoughts on this with AI, it's obviously going to be, it's one of these sectors that's going to have probably the most far-reaching impact on humanity since probably, the last one would be, .com would be, Web 1. I would say it's probably even going to be bigger than, Web 2, Web 3. arguably just because of the amount of applications that there is for it. Now, the key thing here is the monetization of AI and how the markets see that. There's a huge expenditure going into it. Most of it is capital expenditure, which is great. It means it's healthy spending. It's not kind of creating this excessive bubble based on debt. But it's also infrastructure that's being put in. A lot of this are these big data centers, right? So look at how the effects this is going to have on things like the energy industry as well. China have a little bit of an advantage here because, people really, really don't often give China the credit that they deserve for how smart they are and also how ruthless they are. They really, really understand the economics of what they're trying to achieve. And they know with this AI war, they've got access to much cheaper energy, right? And that's not just because of the nature of the country or the fact that it's under a communist rule, anything like that. I've heard some really crazy things about that. It's the fact that the cost per unit is a lot cheaper that they produce, and the fact that they have all these, they're far ahead in terms of using steam energy and actually a lot of natural resources to create this energy as well. So this is a real battle that's going to go on for a long time, and ultimately fueling that battle, we're going to be looking at everything that's needed in that, from semiconductors to precious metals. This whole thing, ultimately you've got the two world's two biggest economies going head to head on this to become the dominant force. And that is going to drive a lot of consumption, right? And we need to, as analysts and as traders, investors, you need to look at who's going to ultimately benefit from that moving forward. And I think the market's got a lot of room to run with this. There is the fear because people are talking about this idea that AI companies just aren't generating what they're spending at the moment. There isn't the monetization around it, right? But people miss the big picture with this. A lot of the spending is in infrastructure, is in making this secure, is in making it bigger, is in making the research, everything that's going into it, the absolute war that's going on at the moment in headhunting the best AI talent and stuff like this. This thing isn't going away, right? It isn't going away. This isn't like, bubbles of the past when you've got these kind of speculative companies that are all based on dreams and ideas and sometimes unproven concepts that the market's just in this frenzy of buying this up and using a lot of debt to do so. I think we're a long way from that eventuality. And while you've got somebody like Trump in charge of the White House, who is so bullish, so dovish, that I think you would need to really see inflation start to raise its head aggressively over there to really make the Fed, look to stop their program of cuts, which would put a bit of a strain on the risk market. So ultimately, to kind of wrap that up in a bundle with everything, I still think the opportunity is there for risk. And while the market's kind of recovering from this, it's like a boxer, late in the game that's just taken hit after hit. They've just come into this flurry of punches, but they've survived it. They're on the ropes, and now they're looking to get back into it. So it's all about finding strength, all right? So with that in mind, NASDAQ looks pretty good at the moment. I'll show you the charts very briefly before we get back to Bitcoin. You have to forgive it because they've got a lot of stuff written across on these charts. But look, already starting the resurgence on the way back up here. All right, this was obviously the large drop that we saw on Friday. Price is just trading with inside that at the moment. Obviously, as soon as we start to break out from here, you're typically going to see one of two things. You're either going to see a liquidity grab here and the market have a deeper correction, or we're possibly going to, see a really strong breakout and then holding this level, creating a new value area here before price moves up. So the other thing I just want to cover off quickly is the VIX is starting to chill out a little bit here. We've seen this just back down below 20 now, meaning that risk probably does have a little bit more room to breathe. We want to see the VIX trading below 20 here. If we add on, for example, the Bitcoin chart here. We can see this it's poking its head up here. See, the VIX is kind of rising here. This really puts pressure on risk assets. Bitcoin kind of had a big sell-off here as well. This was a really good precursor as price really started to come up here, as price then started to drop off. So seeing the volatility index, that's the VIX. Think of it of, a measure of how many, put options are being placed on the S&P 500. So how many, people are basically looking to take short options on the S&P 500. So that's where we are with the VIX. Want to see that kind of starting to come back down again. That would just paint a really nice picture. The dollar, which has been an interesting proxy at the moment, but we are holding the upper portion of this range. Strong breakout here from the dollar, again, putting pressure onto risk markets. So what we want to see here, is the dollar stable or ultimately trending down? Sorry, Live 88, I missed you there. We'll certainly take a look at that for you, mate. Drift. If you can let me know the tickers, guys, that would be ideal. But I will look for Drift USD and Firo as well. Perfect. All right. So look, painting the picture, still think this is about opportunity hunting. I'm somebody that also likes to do this with a bit of confirmation. So we're going to dive into the chart, starting with Bitcoin. I'm going to tell you what I'm looking at, what setups I'm looking to take. And, you know, as we do, kind of having plans to either trade this both ways if we think the shorts are on as well, or if we think there's a key area that buyers will be more prominent, or the safer option, which is waiting to kind of trade this with a bit of confirmation. Now, just to zoom out on this very quickly so you can see, let me just turn these off a minute. This was the key level to hold for me, right? It's been in all my reports recently. Why? It was the high that was set back in January. Look how long. This is a weekly chart. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 weeks. Price trying to get past this, creating this value area below here before we saw that expansion, before we saw the market move out of balance and create this new balanced area here, all right? So at the moment, market participants on a weekly scale are quite happy transacting Bitcoin between these prices. You know, if we look at this in a very simple way, you can kind of say, okay, well, the market pretty much considers that too expensive at the moment. And this is cheap. Yeah. I'm going to include the massive wick down into here. You know, ultimately, if we do start breaking down below this area, I think we don't only come down for this. I think we start moving into the kind of 98,133 area as well. But if we're looking at this here, this at the moment is the time to just kind of move out and just kind of look at this. Hopefully the video is still Tesla. Hopefully at the moment it's not frozen. But look, this is the area. Bitcoin gets up to here. It's just not making headway. It's selling off. This was looking like the breakout, but let's not forget how we treat prior all-time highs and key levels like these, right? You want to see that displacement beyond it. You want to see buyers stepping in. You certainly want to see buyers aggressively holding this level. You don't want to see these wicks up, reclaims of previous levels. Look, I'm not saying you could have predicted this happening, right? But it did look like price wanted to come back at least to maybe establish itself above this level, which was the high of July the 7th. Why was this important? Again, price put in this high. None of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks that pressed into this aggressively were able to close above it, just showing you that the sellers completely control this area and the buyers control this area. So while we're down around this levels, for me, I'm not looking to short into it. If I'd shorted into this, I would have got wiped out. If I shorted into this, I would have got wiped out. Shorting into this would have wiped you out as well. So, you know, it's just not very good practice. Now, if we take that down to a more granular scale on the daily, if I'm looking at what aligns with this area, I've got this consolidation, right? Now, if I put on the rest of the daily markers, I'll show you how these line up, all right? I'm now going to get rid of this here, and I think you guys can all, you know, attest that this area here is the key area, you know, for ultimate price discovery that, you know, we need to establish ourselves back above. Jojo, how you doing, my friend? Jojo, long-time friend, member, and even more, team member at the Birb Nest. Wonderful legacy market insights. Jojo always keeping me well versed on gold. Right, so, excuse me, just drunk a bit of tea and it went down the wrong hole there. So looking at this with a little bit more, this was a level that's acted as a key pivot. Price came in and set this higher, then retested it here, strong move above. The buyers had stepped in here where there were a lot of where there was previously sell pressure. This area held, became resistance through this part here, a strong close above, deviation of this level here, which when we got back above, it led to this pump. So what I said at the beginning of the week, what we said I put out in the Bitcoin report on a Sunday night as well, what I said on the show on Monday is this consolidation here is the key area that I want to see held. The move back above this here gives us a little bit of hope, all right, for the bulls, because look at the reaction here. I mean, the wicking down into this area was unbelievable. I also really like this. This was a bearish gap here, right, or fair value gap, but basically it's an imbalance. It just, you know, think of it like this, to the selling pressure in this case was so strong that price has left this gap in the market. We look at these because when the price revisits here, it gives sellers a really good opportunity to get back on board to sell down. If we close above these, inverting them, then look for these areas to act as future support. Because if this is a perfect area for shorts to get back on board, sellers would be aiming to control this level if they were still in control of the market. Ultimately, this is the last consolidation that was controlled by the sellers here. Buyers tried to step in here offside by the sellers. Now those sellers here have been squeezed with price coming back to here. When price revisits this area, it gives them the opportunity to get out of their positions for minimal loss, or sometimes for no loss at all, or they can cover, hedge, jump on board the other side, and that's when you see these really nice large expansions. So this was important because we can see down here from the wicking how price kind of came into this level. So if I'm asking myself really what supported price through here and what I want to see hold, well, this has done such a great job here, this daily inversion. We can see it hold through here. Obviously, this is that level. This was the consolidation. Why target this one? Because it just led to this massive expansion here. If the buyers that bought here a lot of profit, if those buyers are still present, we expect this area to offer good returns again, right? We see the initial pump from here led to this lovely pump from here and this one from here. Buyers want to defend this area. So at what point would I look to get bearish here? Well, I'd want to see price close below here. It's what we were looking for on that big Friday candle, right? We're saying, okay, well, can price close below this area? If it does, I think we flush out these lows here, all right? But ultimately, look how aggressive buyer stepped in here, which was a really good thing to see. Now we're kind of holding this range here. Yeah, we can see the key levels. So for me, in truth, and I know a lot of people aren't going to want to hear this, but I would want to see price getting above here. Yeah, this is 115.115 here on OKX, right? You know, in an ideal world, when you see these kind of recovery moves, you want to see some liquidity swept and price get back above. Not really much below us here, unless we leave this. We close this daily candle here, leave this low, maybe a quick and sharp move down here, induce some late longs, rip above here. I think once we establish ourselves back above this area and we confirm this breakout, confirm this area here as fair value, then, you know, we're looking for that expansion higher to this previous area up here. You know, price tried to establish this as fair value here, and then we saw what happened. It kind of sold off aggressively. But again, you know, newscasts, there's always more things that go into this than it seems at face value. Now, on the most aggressive side of this, if we look at this on the 4 hour, we can see, just to show this again, what happened with this level. Yeah, so this was our daily breaker. Previously, we waited for the close above here. This is where we took those long positions that worked out so well. So this whole area, again, you know, just very quickly to highlight, it's this area here. It's where the origin of this dotted line comes from. All right. So if I move this down to the 4 hour, Burnside, hello, mate. Good to have you with us as always. And Jojo, I'm on the rare earths metals trade. Yeah, exactly. I've no doubt you're right. I bet you're absolutely loving it at the moment. With China and the US going toe to toe. So look, we can see at the moment this area is holding, right? Price is trying to get itself back above, but look how this level here is just acting as, it's just really, really key resistance at the moment. So again, there's nothing I really see here on the 4 hour that's making me think we still don't need to kind of conquer this area, but closing above this, I think would be really interesting for me, because if we, let me do this quickly. Yeah, if we look at this here, the key resistance being within these wicks, right? So we want to see price establish itself above here. If we draw this back, what we can see is there's definitely precedent within here. Yeah, area of support here. So what we're going to do is make this my nice greeny, tealy color that I can never really explain, but greeny, grey, bluey. Strong close here. Resistance, resistance, right? Price initial rejection, strong close, found support. Price moved up, failed to deliver here, came back down below, closed below. Now this area is offering resistance. So if I was looking at this in a super aggressive way, there's two things I would want to see here to take up positions. One is price closing below this. So this would become an area of demand or an order block. That's why you see it as an OBH4. You can't really use demand, unfortunately, on these as an abbreviation because everybody thinks it means daily. So the whole point is that if this is where the sellers are in control at the moment, we want to see price close above this here, give them a really awkward decision to make here if they want to clear those positions out, close above here. And the close is super important. Then we need to see how price reacts at this level as price is coming into this level. And again, you don't have to be someone that's trying to catch a falling knife here. You don't have to just place limit orders and then watch price rip through and take you out. You can wait for price to establish here. And what does that mean? Well, look what happened within here, right? And this isn't the cleanest example, but it definitely shows you, right? Let's just hide this for a second. Price came in and found support in this area, all right? Here's the up move. This is where price is trying to move higher, right? There's buyers present in here. You can see just by the candles, ultimately, a lot of rejection here as we saw this upside wick. Price now really aggressively trying to push up here. What happens? Well, the trading, so much of the trading here is done in the body, right? So price pushes up here, fails, closes down below this area, the area that the buyers were in control of as it moved higher. If we then use our previous concept of looking, okay, where did the market find some resistance previously? If you ever want to kind of really look at this, look at your upside wicks mixed with your downside, and you're kind of saying, even if obviously you don't have this data at that point, but you can then see how that plays out through here as well. And then just looking to kind of create this kind of area that allows us to look at these. Now, at this point, remember, we don't know that these are here, but we can see here resistance, close above, price finds support, price finds support. This sets a bearish order block or area of supply. When it closes below it, it also violates this area that had found support within these candles. So as we see that, we don't have to just say, oh, well, I'll just place a limit order on here to go long, or I'll place a limit on here to go short. Wait for the close, look for the retest. That's a strong big body candle there. Shows you a lot of selling pressure. You can use things as well, for example, like the CVD, as well as other areas, which we don't really cover on this show, but we do for members. That's not to take anything away from you guys on the free shows, by the way. It's just that it's often quite complex and quite in-depth. It's also information that can be badly misused, which can hurt your P&L. And it's also stuff you don't necessarily need, right? For me, I still base most of my analysis on candlestick charts, right? I'm using other areas like volume, order flow, bits and pieces, but I want everything to reflect in the way that it does for the candles. The candles tell me what has ultimately happened. Price closes below here, retests of this to sell off. So if we're looking for this here, you want to see price get back above this area, maybe even kind of getting above here, right? It includes these wicks as well. Then you would see a really strong breakout in its nature, all right? And it's just a little bit safer here. It's then starting to move its way up. Or, like we said, on the daily, the safest play you could have is a daily close above this area, setting this, all right, as demand, and then look for price to push up. So with Bitcoin at the moment, what's the TLDR version, right? It's the price is coming into support. Yes, the markets still look a little bit weak. They look a little bit hesitant at the moment. The risk picture is looking pretty solid at the moment as well. The data that we do have access to hasn't undergone any significant change. So we're not looking to panic into any of this. So at the moment, I'm still looking at this as opportunity hunting. Now, it doesn't mean that I want to roll the dice necessarily on some massive outliers. Doesn't mean that I also don't, by the way. But it does mean that we need to be selective. KZM, who's head of our wonderful fundamental analysis team over at the Birb Nest, has said this and captured it perfectly. This, the whole cycle really, which is that this hasn't been a cycle of holding these massive runners for supernormal gains. It's very much been a cycle of getting in, taking your initials out when you're like 3 to 4x of the good. That's what we've managed to do so well, I think, this year, and then leave some runners. And pretty much all of those runners, as you can imagine, have been taken out. But taken out, when you're at entry, when you've taken your money out of the market and you've secured your risk, right, as best as you obviously can. So let's move over to Ethereum. And this wonderful squiggle chart that we've got. I'll dive into these on the lower time frame. We'll clear some of these up soon. For those of you that maybe don't know, all the annotations stay on the chart unless they're removed live. All right, these are the charts we use that I describe my kind of thought process and why I'm looking to trade the market at these levels. And then I don't touch them until we're back live again. It gives me accountability and gives you obviously consistency for my views. So what does all this mean? Well, on a weekly scale, this was a really key area. Look at the resistance through here. This was the area to just see price getting support. And again, it's a very rudimentary approach, right? Just looking to where are the key points here the market could not get beyond, yeah? When did it get beyond it? Here. Did it drive back into it, find that those sellers that were so powerful through here had now accepted that the market was looking to go the other way, or not accepted it, they had their hands forced by aggressive buyers, or ultimately were offside here and looked to cover or mitigate, get out their positions here. So this is holding. The next area we were looking for buy orders was down here. in this order block or area of demand. Again, bearish candle closed above here, any returns to this area. You would normally see these on my charts in green, by the way. Just did it in blue, just doing it in green to really symbolize the fact that, look, you don't want to be shorting into these areas. People panic sold into this aggressively, and it is a horrible truth of trading, especially in the crypto space, right? 1 minute you got everyone telling you to hold your bags forever, and then you just see the price go and you see this money going down the drain and you panic and you think, I don't want to end up with nothing. Then you see the slightly more experienced or well-versed market participants are buying up those panic sells, and then you get these kind of candles that get you back above. Ultimately, most people in this market should just be using spot, shouldn't be anywhere near leverage. Most people don't even understand how professional traders use leverage. It's certainly not what they think, to just get these super massive positions open. Don't forget, anything you're looking for super normal returns on, you have to be willing to accept super normal losses, and you'll take yourself out of the game before you really know how to play it, all right? So just make sure you're protecting yourself. And spot, look, on all these spot holdings I've got with ETH, everything, even what I'm going to show you in a moment with like a State X and so on, and even with Asta, you're still in the game, right? I'm not, I'm not just not taking myself out completely because I've used the wrong kind of, cross or isolate, you cross margin rather than isolated. Anyway, that's the key point from here. Still holding key support, had a beautiful reaction at the area we expected buyers to, defend aggressively, and they have done so far. So where are we? We haven't had that resurgence, right? We can see what we were looking at in here previously. Same concept I described to you. Previous consolidation in here forced the market down. Those market participants now offside in here, so tentative early stage positions being built into here, right? Also looking at this, that was key support all the way through here, was key resistance. So patience, price pops above. We'll see on the lower time frames, looking for the returns here. And again, this is where we took some of those confirmation long entries. However, this was the breakout that we were looking for here that we'll look on the 4 hour to drive for new higher prices. But really, really simply, you'll see here, we labeled up where the resistance was. So it wasn't like this thing just dumped from the highs. There were really early stage signals in here on charts as high as the 4 hour. And in crypto, it's very, very important to be taking notice of the charts like that. Anyway, before, no good looking at hindsight now, we will review that on the 4 hour, right? And then we'll lay out our new plans. Tricky at the minute because we can see here that this kind of pivot point here is still in play. All right. Price rejecting at this. So again, what's the key play here? A daily close above this. Flip this area from resistance to support. And then I think, we move up in this kind of nature. I think we would retest this area here because this consolidation ultimately led to the large drop. So it would probably look a bit more like this. Yeah. May as well do it accurately or not at all, as my wonderful late Nan would say, right? So dominate this area, take out the sellers that were there in strength and give them no opportunity but to join the uptrend. So daily again here, like with Bitcoin, really is, it really, really is the key play here. I think it's the safest play. And it also doesn't mean that we can't close above this and then dump back below. But if we do, we can confirm this as a deviation and then say, okay, if price really is that weak, we've got this low here, we've got this low here, and an area where buyers were very prominent. So we might consider some intraday shorts. Again, a little bit dangerous until we get back below this level as well. So rejection and deviation back below here, shorts into there. Without that, I am not interested in shorting this market one bit. This was what we were discussing, right? I did not short Ethereum here. I did not make a single cent on this drop. I lost a reasonable amount of money. I wasn't massively overly exposed, as I explained to you all, for reasons over the coming weeks. And I did buy a lot on the way back down. So, everybody took a hit in this, right? But now it's looking about how we can recover. This was the play, right? Price started to look weak here. This was the down move here. So this sets the area of demand. This is the consolidation, the breakout. Yeah. So if we look at this with, which we always put through the lens of our auction market theory, just like that, then this is a failed auction. Price has now come back within the range here. We expect it to visit the far side of the range. All right. When price breaks out of this area, we see this thin move here. Well, where's the next area of value? So that's what we were targeting here. Again, I didn't openly short Ethereum. For me, there were too many potential obstacles on the way down. I expected this to hold up here. And then obviously I didn't expect the news event on Friday. However, what it did allow us to do is kind of look here. We formed this consolidation. This is the area. Price flushed out. Buyers were so aggressive in here. This got bought up. created this consolidation here. We had this beautiful breakout. Price came back down to retest this area. Actually didn't even get down to it. Buyers were so strong here, they gobbled up all the orders in the inefficiency created on the way up. So now the most aggressive plays that I would want to see here are this, because at the moment the fear is that price is kind of trapped within this. Right, this is the breaker here. This is the down move before price swept liquidity. We got the failure. Price is now finding resistance in here. Look, it's the same methodology we implied here. Yeah. Consolidation shown by the down close candles. Price trying to break out here, tries to break out. We get the failed auction. Price comes back in the range, other side of the range. Now, what you really want to see is this be the deviation, and then price start to close above this, right? So we're going to do this as our breaker line, just so we don't have too many boxes all over the chart. Price closing above this and getting back above this area here. If we did that on the 4 hour and had a large expansion, I would look to build some tentative longs here on the intraday basis and then look to develop them into swings should we get the carry through. But at the moment, this is, you know, resistance, all right? And still the cleanest plan here remains on the daily. Daily close back above here. Anytime we've done that before from this consolidation through, we've ultimately led to higher prices. So that's the first step I want to see here on ETH. All right, we've got about 15 minutes left. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip through Solana, Asta. I want to show you U2U, AVAX, EstateX, Drift, and Fero, if that's right. If I haven't said that right, let me know, guys. And I'm just going to focus on the daily and the 4 hour, all right? So we can get our plans in place. I hope it's all clear for you what I'm looking to do. I'm looking for daily closes above, turn this area into support, move this higher. I'm not really interested in shorting this at the moment. Again, I think there's support below. I think the buyers are willing to step in, so I think that's a dangerous play. So nice and clean, same as BTC. If you've got any questions, guys, do please pop them in the chat and I will try my very best to get around to them. Right, let's take a look at Solana. Hey, nice wiggly lines for you all again, right? So again, this was the area that was supporting price. That was the key kind of, you know, it's quite rough here actually in truth. There was, you know, price kind of moving up into this area here. Then we kind of popped back above, came back down. It was, as I kind of look at this chart here, the kind of key area that I look at is kind of looking through these. All right, and it really did start to get a little bit messy through here, right? Because through here it's fine. Resistance, 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 strong move above, offers support through here, strong breakdown, retest, sell-off, retests, sells off, deviates, then it kind of just gets a little bit messy through here, all right? So that's why, you know, if something's not that, doesn't seem that relevant anymore, and not saying it isn't, it's probably just a slightly wider area because we look at how well it contained that, but then I kind of look a little bit more for recency here. This was kind of a small consolidation down here that started the move, but this consolidation here was of interest because price moved briefly above, really struggled. Yeah, so higher low, another higher low here. You can see price getting strong here, and then we broke out. So, and then on the breakout, price revisited this area here, took out liquidity from this low, buyers stepped in again. So this is what I wanted to see here. When we flushed out the lows, is looking again, look, I haven't really got an area to cleanly short this into. This consolidation buyer stepped in here. This consolidation supported that consolidation, right? I'd really kind of need to see price back below this level here to really see it start to attack this liquidity, because otherwise this area of demand's been retested here and shown us that buyers are willing to step in. This area of demand, or this consolidation here, has shown us that buyers are willing to step in. Same with this, even though it swept the lows out here. Very quick recovery. Now as I'm looking at this, as I said, strong move down, retests here, and if we started to break down, and for that, you'd want to start to see candles like this. Yeah, long upside wick, so you see that absorption, you see the sellers controlling the market and price coming down. Now we've done really what I wanted to see from a bullish perspective, but haven't quite achieved it fully, is we closed back above this area here. Let's note what's happened historically, and only since August, so I appreciate it's a small sample size. Kenny, it's lagging, is it? Apologies. All right, I'll try and move the screen a little bit slower for you guys. So look, closed above this area here, led to upside, right? Price then closed above this area here, led to upside. Price has closed above this area again here, showing that, you know, the buyers are prominent down here. It's not quite as clean as we've seen with the Bitcoin and Ethereum charts, but it does make me say, okay, if I now move to a 4 hour, let's just give this a couple of seconds if it is lagging. just going to hide these for a minute because they look hideous on this level. I think you pretty much get the point that we didn't get the rejection play that we were looking for there. So now we're looking for this. Shy, hello, mate. So what do I want to see now? Well, you know, price, nice reaction off the lows here. All right, I really like this move. Small consolidation here. Flush out of the lows, price, then lovely expansion, consolidation here, another expansion here, price retest this area. So this is the key area for me that's supporting price at the moment. So I want to kind of note this and say, okay, what's the key thing that I want to see within here, even if I make an allowance for the whole consolidation? Well, I want to see this hold. Price starts to close below this. I would look for retests here to short into these lows because that's going to be a lot of liquidity resting below there. If we hold this area, however, you know, you see price kind of coming into this area here. We build some kind of structure, lower time frame, we get that recovery. Could be a great position to take some more longs. Price does look a little bit weak in this move higher. And if we're looking at what is capping the upside here for price, it's this gap. All right. So as we look at this here, the bearish gap here, yeah. So again, the inefficiency. Price sold off aggressively. Price has now come back up to rebalance this area. So what I want to see for a start now is price continuing to hold these candles. Where are we? H4. You know, and I'd include that one in here as well. So these are the down close candles. Price closing above, respecting it. Price closing above, now looking to respect this. Let's close above this gap. Yeah, giving us an inversion gap. Remember, when we get an inversion gap, we look for this to turn from resistance to support. And then while we hold this area, I think then the next target would be here. Would then want to see price establish itself above here. So the playbook is this. Hold this area, right? Expand. Take out these wicks. Use this area here as support. Then the key move here is price moving through this quite aggressively. That's when we would look to find support. And then we've got another area here, obviously, of resistance that we would look to punch through. So all of a sudden, we can see this plan playing out. And it really is one of level to level. All right, we never got that breakout at this level before. These are the plays, right? Key resistance areas and consolidations. When price manages to rip through these areas, you want to see it done with momentum. You look for these pullbacks on lower time frames to long, but just do it to, you know, the key levels. It doesn't take a lot to kind of see here. Price obviously finding support here, yeah, and actually a bit of resistance. If you look at the line, price tried to kind of hold this area here before it flushed out. So this is the consolidation that was controlling this point. When price flushed below that, we look for that to then offer resistance, unless we get a nice break above it, start to consolidate, or you get that fast move. And that's what we're looking for here on Solana. All right, let's take a look at Asta. All right, and our wonderful squiggles on Asta, we can see here. I'll show you them on, but obviously more prominent on the 4 hour. Yeah, I mean, look, this was a great buy here. We were involved in this after we saw the breakout in this area here. I'll show you shortly on the 4 hour chart why that was a key kind of pivot. Price came into this here. We did close below this here, but quickly recovered it. All right, so looking at this on the 4 hour much more than the daily, obviously because of the information that we've got. So let me show you this. What a beautiful resistance to support flip this was. So this was an area we were watching quite keenly, or I certainly was. And again, the down close move from here, what we're looking for, expansion above, we can see it starting to take this playbook. There were three options to us here. One was price comes in, finds support here, yeah, and then we want that structural break. So we now want to see price trading above this, yeah. So origin of the move lower. Let's get price trading above this. All right, and then I think this is the base that then pushes price higher. The other option was to see price, which we could still do, sweep out these lows, and then we would want to see a quick V-shaped recovery. Again, showing us that sellers are trapped on the offside here, and the chances are high that they're going to mitigate here. They're going to, on any pullback, get out of those positions, take on board the new data, and as long as we have that follow through aligned with traditional markets, I think we push up. The other option, which obviously I don't think many people want to see here, maybe Capo, but we see this strong breakdown here, and we fail to get this V-shaped recovery above, and price starts to lose momentum here, and then the breakdown, you know, ultimately I can only trade what's in front of me on the chart, and, you know, swift breakdown here, but a quick recovery of this level. If we showed weakness below here, this really is the next consolidation that's in here that we would target. And again, I don't try and predict these markets. I just look to try and trade what's in front of me and understand where the buyers and sellers are most active. So that's the plan there for Asta. Let's take a look at U2U, right? So I've got some really nice messages from people this morning who, you know, we've been involved in this for quite some time now, right? And you know, major kind of breakout from this long kind of trend line, price just grinding and grinding and grinding down. You know, ultimately with these type of projects, it's really, really difficult to get these. That's why for something like this, this is a spot holding for me. It has been for a long, long time. We've known these guys for a while, and really excellent company. They just got great people behind them. They just got very, very good technology. For people that don't know, again, just don't take my word for it. Just make sure you go and look into these projects, all right? So go and look into it, U2U. It's kind of, if you want to kind of TLDR or a kind of snapshot of it, it's like a leading infrastructure stack for DeepIn, all right? So the aim of the company is powering real world infrastructure apps, putting everything together, real world apps in kind of a singular hub, right? Allowing this kind of ease of access for users to find them, try them, use them, buy them, right? So you can see, you know, how this thing can really sort of come to life as well. And if you're a builder, they've got this amazing plug and play starter kit, all right? You can just go straight in, like turnkey solutions, tools, payments, access to user bases, all to do with being able to kind of launch these projects faster. And I think with the flush out in the market that we've seen, it's really kind of suited these guys well. And again, you can see here, I'm not saying you could have just bought this, but the reason that I really wanted to cover this here is this a great example is if you understand the companies on a fundamental level as well as a technical level, right, then you just have such a much better you know, opportunity to profit for them. That's the truth of it, all right? And the way that you do that is you just find really, really good people and really good communities. I'm not a fundamental analyst, right? I rely really heavily on my team that I've got around me and a few other select people that I've known or taken time to know over a lot of years and really validated that they know what they're talking about. I then take that information from them, plug that into my own system, right? Because, you know, the decision's on me. I don't just, you know, I know a lot of incredible analysts, right? And even fundamental technical side. If someone says to me, you know, this looks like a great project, I'm not just going to go and buy it, right? Like I need to make sure it fits, you know, my own system, you know, whether that be investing, trading, etc. But like I've said with you with this, and like we're going to cover in a minute with Estate X, with good projects like this, and that you have a good understanding of, or you're able to understand their real world application, their use case, etc., then it's averaging into these projects on these dips, right? And then you do get rewarded, you know, as long as conditions apply and as long as the company does pull through. As we know in crypto, it's a very, very difficult journey. You do get involved with these. So a few people ask me how they can maybe get involved in this now. Well, a key area for me, if I'm looking at all of this kind of absorption through here, if I just look at this consolidation, right? That's really, really nice through here, right? If you actually track it back, you can actually kind of include this here as well. And it was just such a key flip of this area. Yeah, price trying to find support here. What happened? Lost the area, retested this consolidation and sold off. Price then came back into this area and failed to get that V-shaped rejection, ultimately having that massive move higher. And then look what happened, right? If we move the chart to here, we understand the key levels of where sellers were in control of the market. Buyers have now taken that control. If we close back down below this level, sellers are probably back in control. We could look to short it lower. But if we look and we move along from here, we see the large expansion. We see price coming back down to a key buy area. What was this? This was a really large expansion. People thought they'd missed this move. Yeah. Often you do get these retests. So let's target these inefficiencies or these areas of consolidation that lead to this move, because if we look at it now, we're doing the same thing. Looks really similar to this move here, right? So for me, I would just be a happy adder in here. I'm going to do this just grey because otherwise everything's just going to be too green. Oh, no, actually what I'm going to do is do this in green, and then you get this, what it normally is on my charts, because it's consolidation or an area of demand, which is going to be in blue. So as we go through here, holding this support, any retest of this area, I'm going to add some more. Price driving down into this gap, I think, is a good buy as well. I don't see that we've taken out key liquidity at any of these levels yet, so I think this thing can really run. And again, for me, this is a long-term hold, all right? So this is something that I'm looking to just build positions in when we get these dips. And for those of you who have been reaching out for this, I mean, obviously we've been involved from here. We were buying this higher as well. We've certainly been buying it lower. This was a great move up. A lot of euphoria in the space now, and I think it's really, really healthy seeing it holding this level. So that's where I'm on U2U. So thank you for everybody that reached out for that one as well. A lot of excitement around the project, something we really, really like at the Birb Nest as well. So hopefully gives you guys some opportunity to dive into this, and please do make sure you do that research, okay? And I think Kenny has very kindly shared the link for you for CoinMarketCap. But again, reach out if you've got any if you want any more information on that. So going to quickly finish off now. I'm going to cover Craigie Boys just shut off, but still going to cover AVAX for you, mate. So just so if you do watch this back, you've got something on here. More wonderful squiggles. This is really holding on by the skin of its teeth, right? So let me show you this. This was an area of demand that we're really hoping to hold. It's basically the high of this kind of range here. Yeah, again, if we just draw some crude areas on here, this is the lows, and these are the highs here. This is what we wanted when we got this expansion above it, looking for this retest, looking for this to pump up from here. Obviously this then happened and price has kind of come back down, but look, it's still holding this area, right? Look at where it went down to. It was available at an incredible discount and probably even lower on some other exchanges as well. But look at the recovery. Again, shows aggressive buyers here. This isn't, the slow bleed or the very fast sell-off followed by just, gallons of blood in the water that you see typically, when the market really is looking to head into that kind of bear market territory. So just looking at this here, again, that's just to give you the context on a weekly scale. The rest of the squiggles will hopefully become a little bit more pertinent when they're in here. And I'm going to clear some of this up now because we can obviously see, I'll show you on the 4 hour what we were looking for here. On a daily scale, right, realistically, I want to see price back above here. So with AVAX, if I'm looking for this for spot holdings, I just keep buying the dips lower. What if we did step into a bear market? What if everything did really die away? Well, then I've still bought this up ultimately, and I'm still in a reasonable position. So looking at it in that respect, I think there's still opportunity with this one. The safest place for me would be back above here as well, but just to show you all of this madness on here that I will clear up at some page. We never got this break above. We did get the close below here, which led to the sell-off. We did then come back below this area, really held price for some time, and we're now just down in a key area here. I think, looking at this on a 4 hour scale, you would want to see price breaking above here. Yeah, we don't really have a kind of breaker or that in there, but just to label it out as a line, I think breaking above here, then building this. So we're setting these areas of consolidation, breaking out, retesting them, a very healthy trend up here for AVAX. Let me quickly show you with Estate X as well. Like a lot of things, this has taken an absolute massive hit, but it really does allow us to buy at cheaper prices. And like I said to you, this is, I told you when I sold AVAX, Asta, Stable, everything. I'm just adding this, right? I know the team really well. I love the real world application. I've got experience and background in property development as well as property investment. This is a multi-trillion-dollar industry that's been ripe for disrupting for a long time. These guys allow you access to add small amounts of tokenized investments within these properties. You're actually owning a small physical piece of the properties all around the world. And we're not talking about, you can go for emerging marketplace, you can look at property in Dubai, Singapore, London. I mean, their portfolio is absolutely exceptional. I would just recommend going to check these guys out, because a lot of people have kind of been saying, people got really euphoric through here, people making a lot of money, people saying to me, what are we doing? We're now back below. I added here, for example, I added more here. And people saying, are you just going to add to this thing to zero? It's like, I don't think it's going to zero. This is a massive long-term play for me. So I'm just being honest with you about levels. Like I said to you, if we start closing below this level, be really wary. Either buy when we're back above it, or be happy to dollar cost average it on the way down. For me, I just still see this as a huge opportunity. I know loads of you think I'm mad, but if you can just do your research on this company, please, do be aware of that. We also have a crash recovery program that's coming out that Crypto Birb's about to launch as well, meaning that you guys can get free access, I believe, to all of our paid Discord. You can dive into the market analyst team, you can dive into the fundamental team, ask them and find out about this, but definitely do your own research. Love these guys, love the project, and ultimately I just see this as a massive sale at the moment. If you want more confirmation, I would say wait till we get back above this area. This was so key. But yeah, for me, I'm just adding on the way down. And very quickly to just finish off, we're going to try and find Drift for our friend who asked. Take a very quick look on Kraken. Yeah, I mean, basically, a lot of these charts are just going to look very similar at the moment, right? A little bit of low liquidity. You can see it here from the gapping. I think price is going to come into this area here. This is what's interesting for me here would be this, right? So I think as long as price kind of holds this area, I think we're looking okay here. I think we started to close back down below. I think we take liquidity below these lows here. I'll certainly revisit. This was the consolidation ultimately that led to the buyers stepping in here. Buyers stepped in again. Now we just need to hold this level. Confirmation plays. Would like to see price above this. Yeah. We got these up close candles here. The down close candle that's formed in here. Let me just move this. Sorry. Price closing above this, we'd have this area of demand after we've swept liquidity, price coming back up, and then I would look to trade this into the highs here on Drift and Firo. Okay, really nice rip from this. Actually looks a little bit like the U2U breakout that we saw, right? Again, I would say with these, just be really, really careful. Looking at this here, up into this, a lot of noise up here, right? We've had this large drop. This is interesting, actually. I know it's on a really large scale here, but just trying to kind of conceptualize this. Just very, very roughly, I would kind of look at this as an area. Look, this was the consolidation that led to the pump price, closed below this, retested it, and sold off so aggressively. I'd really like to see that area hold. Live 88, you're very welcome. And at the moment, it's starting to, again, further confirmation. I would wait for price to either pull back, give us a slightly better retest of this, although, wicks to the up and downside here, people taking profit ultimately, but it does look to be holding. Let's get above this, yeah, and then look to move up. If not, just want to see this area hold. I think if we started to close some candles below this, probably revisit this consolidation here. All right, guys, a few minutes over, as we typically are with these shows, but I really do hope it's been helpful for you all, or not even helpful, just in some ways interesting. Like I say, it's just sharing my thoughts on the market, how I've built a career in this space, not ultimately to start in crypto as a trader, and still am, of indices, forex, for example, as well, occasional stocks, but obviously a lot more exposure to the crypto industry since I started working with the legends over at the Birb Nest about 4 years ago now. I think actually started that journey with everyone. So it's been a real blessing to me. I found a wonderful group of people over there with my team, with the followers, with all of you guys. And honestly, just to get so many of you on these shows still blows my mind. So thank you so much for joining me at least a couple of times every week. If you want to know more about what we do over at the Birb Nest, you can find the information down in the description, as well as everything else that's been covered today. Please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find me also over at BC_Richfield. All right, let me show you a little Twitter handle. All right, if you want to come and follow me over here, I do try to share a lot and obviously get that all out for members as well. So please do let me know if you've got any questions or anything you'd like to see from the show. Apart from that, everyone, have a fantastic week ahead. Let's find those opportunities. Do trade safely. And as always, be good to one another where you can. Take care, guys.